So obviously, coming up Easter Monday, Fast 5K, the second running of, it's going to be streamed live on athleticsweekly.com. Now, obviously, the first running of it was the autumn last year. For anyone that wasn't aware of it and will be aware of it this coming Monday, talk us through a bit about the event and what's involved.
Well, Fast 5K is really been born out of a little bit of a request from athletes last summer, which was obviously a year when there wasn't too many racing opportunities popping up for anybody, elites down. And we was 2-3 coaches who asked me, could I possibly find somewhere to maybe put a 5K road race on. I didn't really think too much of it to begin with, but then thought, yeah, you know what, this is something which actually going forward, I'm a big one for giving our athletes as many racing opportunities as they can, and there are going to be a lot less 5,000 meters on the track. The Diamond League took 5,000 meters out as a standard event. There'll be 1 or 2 every year. There'll tend to be more 3,000s than anything else. So that means that the opportunities to race for athletes who are either the 1,500 folks looking for a sort of 5K race in the spring or whatever in the summer and into the autumn, perhaps some of the track runners looking for opportunities, but it goes all the way up to the marathon, doesn't it? Everybody is looking for a fast 5K opportunity. So I think our sort of medium long-term goal is to have a really high caliber event. We are a little bit hamstrung with travel restrictions at the moment, but our goal is to have this as an international level event that will be good for the best of the British athletes to measure themselves against some of the best in the world if we can attract them to come. So it's early stages. As you said, we had one in October, and we were hoping in April that we would have been a little bit further forward in terms of who we could have had here. But we thought it was important just to still put an event on now, and then we're hoping to then have some more later in the year.
And when you reflect back on the first event in October, it's at the Three Sisters racing circuit. How well did you feel it worked, and what was the response from the athletes?
Well, the idea was, again, to have something that was flat and fast, but that ultimately we could possibly, when we can get spectators back and people can come and watch, if we've got the best athletes, we're assuming people will want to come and watch it, and then maybe able to have some races at the dropping down the levels as well. So that's the Three Sisters circuit is perfect. It's a race circuit. There is a longer lap which goes up a hill, but it's a 1 kilometer lap pretty much, flat and fast, and it's quite well protected as well. That's the other thing you have to think about in Britain. Some of these cycle tracks and things that have been laid out are often in quite open, exposed areas. This has actually got a big banked area around it. It's quite protected. So we think it's a great venue. The athletes seem to like it. Last time there's some pretty fast times run in rotten conditions. The weather in Britain is always going to be a factor, but I think going forward, this venue, and I'm hoping to look for 1 or 2 other venues as well, where we can give athletes the best chance to race fast and also hopefully be able to stream it, as we are doing with Athletics Weekly on Monday, whatever platforms we're doing that through, so that others can watch as well. So we want good racing on a circuit that we can watch people race either in the venue or watching via a stream.
And who should people be looking out for on Monday?
Well, as I said, we've like everybody else, suddenly there are race opportunities have popped up across the weekend, but we're glad to say in the men's and women's, we're hoping that we're going to have Adam Craig running against 1 or 2. There may be 1 or 2 late additions, which we're just waiting to hear on. He may well be the quickest in the field in that. But there's a whole bunch of guys in that kind of high 13 minutes, 14-minute range. We were looking to run personal best. I've singled him out because I always end up kind of going, oh, why have you picked him? Because you kind of go, we keep having discussions here about who do you think is going to win. doesn't really matter, does it? High level, that should be a really good competitive race because they're all within the same sort of time bracket. The women's might be a little bit more because we've got Laura and Laura Waitman and Mary Wansera Ngugi, who's been based in the UK and is running really, was getting back into really good shape. She's a world-class road runner. They could be well in the low 15 minutes, and Jip van Verstappen as well. Vastenberg, sorry. Jip's been obviously had a disappointing European indoors, didn't she? Where she went out and was probably one of the favourites for medal. So it could be that those three are a little bit further ahead of the others, but then we've got a whole bunch of others behind them who'll be looking to run well under 16 minutes, and then that field there'll be plenty of PBs if the weather's kind, I would think. So we are keen. We had initially, as I said, hoped we could have a few international runners from outside of these shores, but the last couple of weeks have really meant that that's proven difficult to arrange. So we can look forward to that next time. But for this one, I think this time of the year, we hopefully will see a couple of cracking races, and if the weather's kind, and hopefully some fast times.
And you mentioned a couple of the challenges already. How challenging is it to be putting an event on just now, even with things starting to change a little bit? There are so many more stages that you have to go through, aren't there?
There are, and I think obviously we all last year as event organisers and attending the events, I managed to get to a couple of diamond leagues and even those I was commentating on remotely. We all understand the responsibility of event organisers to put on safe events. We all want to get on and have events, but on the other hand, we don't want to do anything to exacerbate the issues that are already out there. So we are working very, very closely and have been with Run Britain and the various federations as well around completely understanding where they are and what they're wanting to allow. But we also have to work with the local authorities and the venue as well. We've been doing a lot of work, and not only on this event, but on we have a whole bunch of other events, big sort of more mass participation events planned for this summer. So yes, it's been a learning curve. Started last year, and we were looking at how could we put events on, and that didn't happen in the end. But that process has been rolled into this year a little bit. So yes, we're all crossing our fingers that we can start to the sort of event we have on Monday, where it's not that many people, 35 in each race, 3 races, and then you sort of go to the next level and the next level as we come out, hopefully out of the restrictions that we have, but also understanding that things may never be the same as they were, and that as event organisers we will have to have a set of measures in place, or at least a set of measures available to us to always allow things like social distancing to happen, to be really aware of the possibilities of COVID outbreaks and things, and making sure we are doing everything we can to ensure that doesn't happen. So we have a very robust medical plan. With we always over egg on that anyway, but even more so now. Everybody who turns up on site on Monday will have filled in a form beforehand, will be heat checked on the day. All of our staff are tested before they turn up at the event. So these are all things that we wouldn't have done 18 months ago, but they're becoming part and parcel of daily life now, aren't they?
Yeah, and well, that's what I was going to ask you, when or if you think racing as we know it or as we knew it will sort of return, especially when it comes to the bigger sort of mass participation events.
Well, I think we're going to have to be patient and see. I think we will see earlier on in the summer. I mean, we've got our first event which sits within the window of May 17th to June 21st, 4,000. And again, we've had to introduce some protocols that for those taking part and for us as organisers are different. We've got a start process which will take 30 minutes or so for people to gradually wind their way through in a what we're calling a dynamic start to get to start line before they start running, and no spectators and all the rest of it. So if that's happening in June, it is a bit of a leap to think about 40,000 people in September, perhaps doing really big events, or and then obviously London Marathon is in October. But that is enough time, I think, for those trials, if you like, to take place. And if they show that there's, and 100% sure the vast majority of event organizers are going to be really careful about what they do, so that there is nobody can turn around and say, maybe as we had with the Cheltenham Race Festival last year, and say, because that event went on, it added to the spread of COVID. So I'm happy that we're outdoor events. I would be less confident if I was involved in big indoor events, but I think from an outdoor event perspective, as long as we're patient and we take it each step, and as we go through each step of size, that we have the evidence to show that we coped, then good. The event, we need events back. We all want running and swimming and triathlons and cycling, and we want events to happen. Particularly, even the Prime Minister is talking about the health of the nation in a wider perspective. I sometimes get fed up to the back teeth of hearing that, because we all know and understand that, but nobody really wants to support it sometimes. So I'm really hoping that we can all look forward to a more normal summer. It won't be the same this year, and it may not be ever. I think it'll be probably next summer before we even get back to a normalish program, but with the with kind of new ways of operating. And let's face it, on an individual basis, there are plenty of people who may still want to turn up to an event like that with a mask, or want to make sure that let's say, for instance, our volunteers, they don't want water handed to them. They don't want to have the contact that they would normally have. So going forward, I think we have to also understand the individual's nervousness, perhaps, around being in big crowds and in situations like that. So yeah, it changed times, but let's be hopeful about the summer.
Yeah, and I guess events like the Fast 5K coming up, and the British Marathon trials, they were hugely positive events, and there was some great racing involved. I guess it just shows you don't need to have that massive crowd, that that huge sort of setup for there to be great races.
No, and it's interesting, isn't it? We've moved, because of the growth of mass participation, that elite races have tended to then be, happening at the front end of that, and it's great, because it gives you that overall view of running. The fast guys at the front, and then the thousands behind doing their thing. But we know on the track, there are 15 in a 5,000 meters on the track. So why wouldn't there be 15 in a 5,000 meters on the road? Or indeed, as we had it for the marathon trial, in the marathon, it's particularly when there's something at stake like the Olympic team, and then bearing in mind that the World Road Running Championships are now going to be much bigger, and 5K is going to be part of that, and there are lots of countries bidding to host them. I think that's only going to be something which increases in popularity, not the other way. I mean, sadly, it may be track racing that suffers, which hopefully it won't. But it is becoming increasingly difficult to find a 10,000 meters on the track, and indeed 5,000 meter races on the track. So I hope we're not fueling that process. I'm hoping that they can still work together. We should have both. But yes, the popularity is there, and it's much easier now to stream events reasonably cost effectively. So that means that more people can see. If you've got a good race going on and you've got good athletes there, then people can watch it.
Yeah, the nature of the consumption of athletics is very much changing, and I think that's been noticeable over the past year or so, that not just the events themselves have been changing or being more creative about how they're putting things on, broadcasters, or how they broadcast these events is changing markedly as well.
It is, and everything down from, obviously my work at the BBC. We would took on board some creative events, as you said, last year that were part of the Diamond League, but you know, we had some great events that appeared on television that might in another period. I remember the Lausanne pole vault. You know, if you'd said to somebody, we're going to put pole vault on for a couple of hours and nothing else, but it was fantastic, you know, and athletics delivers at that level, at any level really, but it can deliver even at that, you know, single event level if you've got the right people there and the right atmosphere, and it was great. And I think it certainly is an interesting period where that change from, you know, kind of how as athletics fans you access athletics is it's brilliant. The danger obviously is that you know, you don't want athletics to disappear off you know, the kind of the national channels, whether it's in Britain or in France or Germany or the US or wherever it is, and just become an online sport. I mean, we don't want that either. So you've got to get a good balance, and one can feed the other. And if you get the balance right, then great. And I think the difference now is, as I said, from an event promoting, an event organizing point of view, you have so many options now in getting coverage of the event cost effectively, rather than, you know, in the past, TV cameras are expensive and setting links up and all the rest of it. It is much easier now.